Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a short and petty story to warm you up. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. 24 hours council tax. I used to be a construction worker and would often do work for people who were beefing with the council over red tape. One was this guy who bought two adjacent houses with the intention of making them into one. Both houses had separate council tax accounts, which needed to be merged into one, so the guy calls the council and pays the balance on both accounts. He then cancels one account, then changes the other so that it covers the whole building. A month after doing this, the guy gets two bills, one for the new account that covers the whole building, and one for the old account that was canceled, which states that he owes $1.68. He asks them to ask about it. They tell him that their office takes 24 hours to process the account closure, so the $1.68 represents a single day of tax that was accumulated before the closure was completed. The guy asks if this could just be waived, since he's technically already paying for that period through the other tax code. Council tells him no, absolutely no discretion can be given with any transaction. So the guy does some research and somehow finds out that under UK law, if this account still has funds in it, the council has to keep it open for 100 years, even if the property it relates to no longer exists. So he calls them back to tell them he's sending them a check for $2.68, and for the next 100 years, they have to send him an annual statement telling them that his account is $1 in credit. Coincidentally, the person on the other end of the phone had suddenly found some spare discretion and was able to waive the charge. And our second story. Entitled driver gets exactly what she deserves. I live in this upper-class liberal town in Ohio called Bexley. Everyone in this town acts like complete self-righteous, narcissistic, entitled boneheads and feel that their crap smells better than everyone else's. People buy their kids new luxury cars when they hit 16. My neighbor got a brand new BMW for passing her driving exam. It sounds absurd, but it's just how Bexley is. One other thing about Bexley is that people from Bexley drive like the road is their private racetrack. They blow through stop signs, turn left on red, and park wherever their car can fit. I'm one of the few kids in Bexley who works a job to pay for his own college, small rent to live at home. I'm 20 and 18 was the limit for my parents, car and car insurance. I'm grateful that my parents pay for my home food, heat and AC, electricity, phone bill, etc. I get about 5 hours of sleep a night. So one day, about a month ago, I decided to grab some sushi after the morning shift at work. This sushi place is right by a small private college within Bexley called Capital University. I pull into the lot to find one space empty and I pull in, I get out, go into the sushi joint and spend maybe half an hour there. After a great lunch, I go back to see my car is blocked into the space by a huge gray GMC Yukon. I was blocked in the spot as the parking spaces have those concrete bumps in front to separate the spots. I took a picture of the license plate just for reference. Well, I just waited patiently for the car owner to show back up because maybe there were no spots to park in at the time and my car just happened to be the one, as well as two other cars next to mine, of course. About 10 minutes later, a woman, maybe 35 years old, shows up and sees me in my car listening to music. She knocks on my window and tells me that I need to turn my music down and that us college kids are ruining her city. First of all, I go to Ohio State, not Capital. I look at her blankly as my music isn't that loud, and I'm wondering how she assumes I go to Capital. She yells in my face, "Wake up, you spoiled brat!" Now, I had no clue how crazy this woman was, and I just turned my music off and shut the window and continue waiting for the car owner to move their car. Well, the woman pulls keys out of her purse and hops into her gargantuan GMC Yukon and screeches away, spattering mud on my car, which I paid for and paid to clean. I was the brat? This woman has the audacity to seal 3 cars in and complain that my music is too loud? I was 15 minutes late back to work that day. I'm never late. This was the first time I was late to work, and I hope it was the last. I swore that if I ever saw her again, I would do to her what she had done to me. Well, fast forward a month later to what is today. I decided to grab some sushi after taking an exam and went to the same sushi place in the same parking lot to see the same gray GMC Yukon taking up both of the last 2 spots in the lot. I'm on cloud 9 at this moment and park right next to the driver's side of her car, making sure I was in a spot and that she couldn't get into her car. There was about 5 inches between my passenger door and her driver door. I leave my car, grab sushi to go, and patiently sit in my car. Well, what do you know? About 15 minutes later, the woman walks up to her double-parked car to see that I had sealed her in. I hear her yelling that she's going to sue the person who did this. She sees me listening to music in the car that's blocking her from leaving. She approaches my car and demands I move. I tell her, "You got into the spot, you can get out of the spot." She threatens to call the cops, and I just laugh. I know the laws and even have a thin blue line flag bumper sticker on my car. She calls the cops, and within 1 minute, a cop shows up. I get out of my car, and this woman starts yelling at the cop about how I had sealed her in. I told the cop I was trying to park within the space. The cop looks at her car, then looks at mine, and looked so disappointed after. The officer says to the woman to be happy I didn't have her car towed. He also said that she needs to move her car within the next minute or he'll ticket her for parking illegally. Angrily, the woman climbs in her passenger door and is struggling to reach the driver's side. She's throwing garbage out of her car in a fit, gets in, and moves her car over to drive. The cop knocks on her window and orders her to pick up her trash. She says to him, "Well, isn't that what garbage men do?" I'm trying hard to keep a straight face, but I just start laughing my butt off because of her stupid remark. At this point, the woman looks at me, and it seems she finally remembered who I was. Looking very pissed off, she sighs, gets out of her car, picks up her trash, and gets back into her car. The cop gets back into his car and tries to pull away as the woman jerks her car out of the spot, nearly hitting the cop car, and speeds to the end of the lot where she stops at the red light. The woman, forgetting that she isn't the queen of the world and speeding is illegal, immediately gets pulled over. The lot is about 40 feet wide, and the woman is about 20 feet from me, so I can hear her. She starts yelling to the cop, "Reckless driving! I know exactly what's going on." I get back in my car, turn the music back on, and start thanking heaven for giving me this satisfaction. I pull away from the lot to have the greatest sense of fulfillment I've ever had in my life. And our last story. You're firing me? Now you're bankrupt. So this happened about 5 to 6 years ago when I worked as an assistant bar manager for the worst bosses ever, who we'll call Scum Boss and Less Scum. Backstory. These are 2 bankers who had too much money and decided to buy a bar while not having any hospitality experience between the 2 of them. When they employed me, I was only a bar assistant, but because of their scumminess and micromanaging habits, it made the bar manager and assistant bar manager quit, and I rose to my position. I was good at my job and have always been in hospitality, so I was qualified to be promoted. Our bar's open from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., so when I became manager, I didn't have anyone to do split shifts as it took them so long to hire someone else. I'd be working from 8 a.m. to 3 a.m. 6 days a week without any complaints. I liked my staff but hated my bosses. I was able to form good relationships with customers, so we had loads of regulars coming in when we were open. The Sen. So Scumbag Boss and Less Scum had no idea how to serve tables, let alone run a bar, but they refused to listen to any of our suggestions and still wanted massive profits. One way was to keep tabs on big party reservations. When the customers in these parties were drunk beyond belief, they wanted us to add items in their orders that they didn't order and manually increase the price for any liquor that they bought by the bottle so that their bill would be higher. The previous staff were compliant in following their orders, but I had my morals, so I refused to cheat customers. Scum Boss wasn't happy that I wouldn't listen to him, so he made sure to make it known that he didn't fancy me. He'd constantly berate me in front of new staff or his guests. He'd constantly bring his coworkers to the bar to show off that he was some kind of big shot in the bar, saying that the only reason why some of our regulars came was because they wanted to ogle at my breasts. Less Scum would try to defuse the situation and apologize for his friend, but when they'd get drunk, he'd end up doing the same thing. So finally, Scum Boss decided it was time to get rid of me so that they could replace me with a yes man that wouldn't question them, so they decided to sack me and accuse me of stealing tips, giving away free drinks to my regulars, and abusing the staff. By this time, I already had another job lined up, as I'd had enough of them, and wasn't really perturbed by losing the job. My issue was that they refused to give me my last paycheck because they had to give me my severance, any overtime pay, as well as any outstanding annual leave I had. I worked 19 hours a day when I only had to work 8 hours, so I had a lot of overtime and loads of annual leave left. I couldn't take any vacations because no one could cover me, and they had to pay me a good $6 to $7K for firing me. The revenge. After holding my rightly deserved money back for 2 months, I decided to report them to some government agencies. I reported them to the manpower department, telling them of my work hours and only being given 30 minutes break time, the treatment of their staff, as well as their habit of hiring people on tourist visas. If you're on a tourist visa, you're not allowed to work, otherwise you're classified as illegal. I also gave the Environment Agency a ring and report the horrible environment of the bar. We had roaches, rats, and when I told the bosses, they just ignored me and said I should just keep it to myself. In addition to most of their staff not having the proper prior food handling training, my staff resigned when I got sacked, so most of the leftover staff were their yes men who love sucking up to them. I then met up with some of my regulars who've become my drinking buddies and learned that Scum Boss and Less Scum have been telling customers that look for me that I quit. So when I told them the whole story of what transpired, they got furious and told all of their friends and colleagues to not frequent the bar anymore. They didn't like the bosses as well, but came back to the bar because of me. Last I heard, manpower agents audited them and discovered that 80% of the staff were illegals and that they were overworking their staff as well as mistreating them. An environment agent came unannounced the following week and discovered the pest infestation, hence making the bar's cleanliness rating a D. They got fined about $20,000 for this negligence, and because my regulars stopped coming to the bar, they only had 20 to 30% of their usual customers. They ended up going bankrupt and closing the bar. I, on the other hand, got my money as well as a good story to tell. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.